Letter to the Hebrews, which at times can appear maybe complicated or somewhat mysterious because of all these references. They talk about Noah and Moses and Abraham and temples and veils and high priests and rituals. It really is a theological marvel because it arises in the apostolic times. So what it offers for us is how the first Christians understood who Jesus is. And the author to the letter to the Hebrews fleshes this out in a beautiful way. And the main thrust of it is that Jesus is the high priest. So they take everything the Jews know about what the high priest did. They offered a sacrifice on behalf of sins, and they did it behind the veil in the Holy of Holies in the temple. And you know how it is, fellow Jews. Like, you could only do this once a year and this, that, blah, 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 blah. And then he applies it to Christ and says, yeah, but what Christ did was even better because he went behind the veil of his flesh into the Holy of Holies before the Father face to face, offering the ultimate sacrifice of himself. And so they really make all these connection points, and it's really fascinating to read. But what the author is doing, he's writing to a community, to a people who have a real need. So why is he saying all this stuff to what was probably Jewish converts to Christianity? Because otherwise they wouldn't appreciate all of this ritual talk. It really comes down, to a certain extent, to what happens now. This is a community that is waiting for Jesus to return. And so Jesus has done all these amazing things that have an everlasting impact on our ultimate destiny. But really, you're just getting up and going to work today. Like, what about your circumstance right now do you see as wildly different? Probably not much, other than being maybe the scum of society because you weren't favored as a Christian. And so he gives to them today the example of Abraham, who was also promised much. And he had this great promise because unlike us who have to promise by something greater than ourselves, God promises Abraham on his own merits. And what Abraham does, it says, after awaiting patiently, Abraham obtained the promise. And even then, it came at great scandal and cost. Like, he had to believe, and this is what he references today, and in the Hebrews as a wider reading. Even when God said, I want you to sacrifice your son for me, he had to believe even then, well, technically speaking, God could raise Isaac even from the dead. So let me actually still believe even now. That's how far his faith goes, into the impossible, or what seems so. And he reasoned rightly, is what the author will say. And so for Christians today, who are awaiting the fulfillment of all the things that Christ has done for our sake, it behooves us in today's society to actually have a plan. What is my strategy for waiting patiently so that my faith does not dim, so that my zeal is not dampened, so that my confidence does not fall away as one day just moves into the next, moves into the next, moves into the next, so that when the day happens that he does come, and I don't know when that day is. I had a priest friend who was ordained after me. He just had a heart attack and died a few weeks ago. Like, he had no idea that day he was going to die. But the day that he died, he was a disciple of Jesus Christ. He had made an examination of conscience at night. He had been up on his confessions. He had been faithful to his promises. He had said Mass that morning. He just steadily believed. And so in the same way, whenever that day comes, what the author is saying is, look to Abraham and follow the patience of his faith so that we can inherit the promise and find ourselves victorious among the saints like St. Agnes, whom we celebrate today.